Welcome to the latest episode of Five on the Floor on the Five Reasons Sports Network. Thanks for joining us on your favorite podcast app. On Apple, recommend Spotify or Apple Podcasts. On Android, recommend Spotify. Also, check out the Five Reasons YouTube channel. That's a place to go for all your content in South Florida sports. Dolphins, we will have coverage. We're going to be out at training camp. Again, Alfredo Arteaga, he'll have his daily camp reports once Dolphins camp opens on the 22nd. Also, check out Off the Floor. That's our Discord server. $2.99 per month. You know about it by now. Why aren't you on there? Most Heat conversation, information, everything else split into 10 different channels. Take everything good from Twitter. There's not a lot good from Twitter. Whatever it is Heat related, we put it here. Also, you can check out our stage shows. We're doing those regularly now as well. And we'll be doing some in-game coverage this season. So you're going to want to be there because this is really ultimately going to be the only place to be. So check it out. It's Off the Floor. Also, check out Prize Picks. Use that code. It's FIVE. You get $50 if you put down 5. WNBA and MLB are going right now. You'll get NHL, NBA, and NFL back in the fall. Also, big fight card this weekend in Vegas. Pacquiao is headlining that. You can play that on Prize Picks as well. So check it out. Use the code FIVE. And now, today's episode.
Mercy. Luxurious. Heat Nation. Yeah. Mercy and Lago. Down to Biscayne. Yeah. 5 on the floor. Ride for my dogs. Where here's the thing. You can check the score. Hustle hard, couple scars. Wearing bubble frogs. Down to Biscayne. Kept the floor playing. Got it all band. Y'all seen the block. Stop with one hand. And Pat, we trust, it's power, have the guts. We're here to bring the heat, y'all can hang it up.
Welcome to Five on the Floor, a daily insider show on the Miami Heat and the NBA, featuring Ethan Skolnick, Greg Sylvander, Alex Toledo, Brady Hawk, and others from the Five Reasons Sports Network. Also, make sure to subscribe to Off the Floor for the most heat anywhere.
All right, welcome back to Five on the Floor. Here's today's floor plan. First, we're celebrating the end of Miami Heat's Summer League. I do not need to see some of the players on that team ever again. But we're going to talk about Erik Spoelstra today. My name is Ethan Skolnick. You can follow me at Ethan J. Skolnick on Five Reasons Sports. I got Sean Rochester. You can follow him at S. Rochester NBA. We've got one of the writers for our website. Make sure you check out fivereasonsports.com. His coverage of WNBA, the Heat, boxing, and more. We got Mateo Mayorga. We're in 3 different locations right now, 3 different states. I am back in the state of Florida, but I was in Las Vegas, and I was there for a rare occasion. It's like a meteor. Erik Spoelstra speaking poorly of a player publicly. Not something that we typically hear him do. Since he took over in 2008, he has sort of found his voice over time as he's become a more credible person in the league and ultimately the longest tenured coach in the NBA with one team. But the one thing he has really not done is step out and criticize to the media. I've always said that what he does is he praises individually and when criticized sort of collectively. He doesn't go after particular players. Now, Pat Riley used to do that. Used to do that a lot. Other coaches have done it. Pop certainly has done it. But it's never really been Spoelstra's way. He will say something on the side at times, but publicly he doesn't want to do that, and he'd rather not speak much publicly at all. That's what made this unusual the other day, because just to give a little bit of context on this, myself and Anthony Chang were sitting baseline before one of the Summer League games, and Spoelstra came over, said hello, spoke for a few minutes. I noted that, not even a few minutes, it was like 4 or 5 minutes, noted that he looks refreshed. There was a lot of conversation about things he's been going through, and obviously that was a challenging season last year dealing with Jimmy Butler and everything else that went into it. But he looked refreshed, and we were just speaking casually about a couple things, and then he joked, "Oh, maybe I'll talk to you guys tomorrow at practice," which he used to do that when he'd be out at Summer League, but hasn't, from my knowledge, hadn't done that in a while. But it wasn't just like a little 3 minutes, I'm trying to get out of here. It went for 18 minutes. And I was there with Anthony Chang, with Tim Reynolds, Ira Winderman, Wes Goldberg, and Jason Jackson. Okay, so the 6 of us were there. He knows all of us. But he spoke to the public this wasn't just like him chatting with us or something like that and saying a player needs to get it together. He spoke with the public, and when he was asked about Kel'el Ware, who had played poorly, not just poorly, but had played with very little effort in the previous game, he was very direct, and he even opened it with what seemed like a prepared speech. There are levels to this, and then went on from it. And the reason I'm having Sean and Mateo on is because they have very different perspectives on this. Because as this was happening, we chat about it on our internal strings. And so I want to get their views on it. And I guess I'll just start here, Sean. It's not something he typically does. The last time I can remember him even leaning this direction was with Dion Waiters when I was up at camp in Palm Beach in 2019, and Dion said something to us about how he wanted to get more touches or be more featured, and Spo was like, well, yeah, we're not going to do that, basically, right afterwards. But it wasn't prepared. It was like his reaction to what Dion had just said on the same court a few minutes earlier. But before that, the only player I can really remember, and I guess there was a little of Beasley, but it was early in Spo's career, was Whiteside. That when Hassan would sort of challenge after games, be frustrated about touches, and Spo did go at him a couple of times publicly. What do you make of the fact that he did this with Ware? And then we'll talk about the response that Ware had, which I thought was actually pretty good.
Yeah, I think the fact that, as you said, it's not a common thing that he does makes me believe, and I think we can probably agree on this based on what other things I've heard, is that there's been more to this behind the scenes. This wasn't just a reaction to a few summer league games. And I feel like, Beasley is a great comparison. Not that we're saying that Kel'el and Beasley are the same, because that connotates certain things with what Beasley's doing off the floor, but just because of the age. Like Hassan was a little bit older because of the path he took to get to the NBA. But the fact that Spo doesn't do this often makes me believe that this conversation certainly has happened prior to this. Like, this was not breaking news, Spo doing this publicly. These conversations have happened repeatedly, I would imagine, over and over off the court prior to this, before it went public. And the fact that he doesn't do it often, it has more meaning. Like, the comparison I would give is, as a coach, if I'm constantly yelling, it loses its effect at certain points. Spo, the fact that he's not calling people out publicly or individually often, like you said, a meteor, like all he's doing is coaching. And I don't think Kel'el was like blindsided by it. Maybe the fact that it went public, but he knows this criticism is in the minds of the coaching staff. So I don't want to overreact to it, but I do think it's important that we talk about it, because this is, one of the most important players in our program right now.
Well, and to that end, just to give a little bit more background about how this ended. So Spoelstra was asked by Anthony about Ware, very basic question, about his effort and where he is and all that. And he spoke about him for the 2 or 3 minutes. And then I asked about Jovic right afterwards, and Spo's eyes lit up. And it became this comparison that he made about where Jovic was when he first broke in and where he is now in terms of professionalism. And then he pivoted back to, well, that's why I'm encouraged by Kel'el. But the wording of that is a little weird. I don't think he meant to say encouraged by Kel'el. He's encouraged that Ware's going to figure it out because Jovic did. But it wasn't that he was encouraged in the moment by what Ware has actually done. And then I guess the next part of this was Ware came out and played harder in the next 2 games. I mean, I was sitting baseline and watched both of them. Like he played harder. He did he set, not perfectly, but he set better, all the little things that Spo wants him to do, the setting the screens, the boxing out on rebounds, the non-box score stuff. He did those things in the next 2 games, and he also had the right responses in his post-game interview both times about sort of taking it to heart. Mateo, you had a different reaction to this, though, because I know Sean, at first, his reaction was, okay, this is good. This is coaching. Well, why didn't you like it from Spoelstra?
Yes, thank you for having me back. I'm not a fan of this because I don't like it when a coach snitches on their player. I'm perfectly aware of wearing out Spoelstra, but it's unnecessary because of the rift it can create. Public comments are usually for show. I have zero doubts that Erik Spoelstra could have lit the same flame under his rear with one of his terse, high intensity one-on-one conversations, telling him, look, man, I'm coming after your minutes if you don't get it together. And I think that's the most effective way to motivate a player who especially is got like these maturity issues, because money, or excuse me, playing time equates to money down the road. And if you are out of the rotation for a certain amount of time, you likely will not get the certain amount of money you are looking for at the end, or at the next cycle. Players are no different than the three of us. They don't want to be humbled in front of a large room, especially in front of people who may respect them. And, Ethan, you touched on it a moment ago. This is some of the most eye-popping stuff since Dion Waiters and Hassan Whiteside. The quote that I thought of was the one that's really going to age me, when he said that he needs to be, or speaking of Hassan, he needs to be more accountable to the players and the coaching staff. And, I'm usually skeptical of these approaches because, you think of a year ago in the off season, the relationship with Jimmy Butler was already souring, but Pat Riley spoke to him through the press, telling him to shut up, and it really didn't help things. And considering how good the Heat were at their best with him, it was unnecessary at that point. And you know, uh, privately, I don't want to try to spill the sauce, but you mentioned that this is kind of like Spoelstra really asserting himself further because strong and contradicting personality is no longer there. I'd like to take this a little further. It seems to me that Bam Adebayo, the team captain, has not become the vocal force that he needs to be yet, and uh, Spoelstra is taking on the role of almost like the old Udonis Haslam. And granted, he was the one president at the time, and he was the one y'all caught in the scrum. But you know, you think of the severity of or how heavy these comments are. It's not more serious than being said that you're not being a good enough professional, and the other underlying message. Hey, I don't have your back here while I sick the media wolves on you like Ira, like Barry, and now you got to deal with this storyline the entire year. I just don't think it was necessary.
That's it. Well, now I've got an image of Barry as a wolf, so I'm going to hold that one in my head. Except reality. Let me pivot on this a little bit, because I think there's a larger conversation to have on the other side of this, of kind of where Spoelstra's voice is going in the organization, which I think that there's more to this ultimately. But I guess, Sean, the reason that I kind of lean on your side on this, and it's with all respect for Mateo's comments, is because I think that in this day and age, the way to get players to respond the most is by humbling them publicly. And I don't think it's necessarily, I don't think Spo did it with total force. Okay, but I think Ware was walking out of the way they have it set up there at Resorts World, where the team was staying, was they have tents set up in the back, like these huge tents, and they had courts there, and Ware was walking out alone, and he's scrolling his phone. I have no idea what he was scrolling. Okay, could have been scrolling anything. But the point is, he definitely did pay attention to social media, because I know that he took offense to a video that I posted of him doing basically, I came in, okay, before Spo talked, we come in towards the end. They let us see more during this period of time than they let us see during the season. But we come in and I just start shooting a video. Wherever. And I literally focused on Ware for 33 seconds. That's it. Okay. And before Spo came out, it was like, okay, I got to put the phone away because I'm going to go, we got to redirect it towards the conversation with Spoelstra. And the 33 seconds I took were of him versus Golden, and Ware looked terrible and disengaged on 2 reps against Golden. And so I posted it as I post video. I posted video of Ware making a 3-point shot. Also, I posted lots of video the next day. But I guess this video, because somebody who's connected to Jimmy Butler decided to make a big deal of it, and so Ware saw it, posted something on it, which he then deleted. But the overall point is, okay, and the next day I posted like 8 positive videos about Ware. There's no agenda here. It was just, this is the video that I posted. But I guess the overall point is on it that he's paying attention to social media. By the way, as most players do, as I know Hero did for years, okay, as I know that LeBron did, okay. All right. Dwayne would see things. Okay. And I think in this era, we can talk about money and all this and where it plays into it. Ware's not in the position to get paid yet. They can hold playing time over him. They can hold the starting position over him. But I guess that's why, Sean, I think this day and age is a little different. I feel like your peers are out there in the public So doing it out there, I think, is motivational to some guys, and maybe you're trying to see if this is a button you can push.
Yeah, and I agree with that in terms of like this age of athlete and how they respond. What would make me fearful of this strategy is, so are you telling me that, because this is not fixed? I know I've seen people like, doing the circling of like, oh my God, he called him out. He played well for 2 games. Like, that's really cool. It's what, July 19th, 18th? Like, we fixed the problem in a week. If it was that easy, imagine how great Spo could make every single player. He'd just go to the public or go to the media, call them out, and immediately within a week, they're all solved. Like, what do we, this is going to be an ongoing problem. This was something that was brought up when we drafted Kel'el. So what I would be fearful of is, again, this has happened behind the scenes. He didn't respond to it then. And it took a July report, from Resort Worlds to make him play harder. Like, I'm not saying that I'm indicting him on forever and, forever he's going to be a lazy, unmotivated, all those, unprofessional. No, I mean, he's a young kid. He can fix it. We remember we went through this with Tyler about the music festivals and stuff. Like, there was always there's always these things that these young guys have to learn. To me, I don't have any problem with it. I understand what Mateo is saying in terms of like the individual. But if it is a button that he can press, I think you can only press it so many times before at some point that button becomes jammed. And like, Kel'el, you just got to figure it out. And not just to him, but any young player at this point.
And on the other side of this, I'm gonna let Mateo respond, and I want to let him respond to the other side. But I also again want to get into kind of why I thought this was more significant for Spoelstra than for Ware, in terms of where the organization, no pun intended, may ultimately be going here. Before we do, we want to mention a great sponsor of the 5 Reasons Sports Network. Where you should be going if you're looking for a house is to one of the open houses that are hosted by our friends Amanda and Javier at Real Estate Shop. RealEstateShopFL.com. That's 2 P's and an E, based in Broward County. But again, if you're in Dade, if you're in Palm Beach, they can help you find or sell your house there as well. South Florida can be a little tricky here, as we know. Interest rates obviously a little bit higher than they've been in previous years. They can help you navigate all of that, as well as find the right house that's out there as the inventory starts to increase in our areas. Check them out, realestateShopFL.com or the Fort Lauderdale Realtor on Instagram. All right, Mateo, jump in there.
You know how you mentioned some time ago how Pat would always kind of do this like in the 90s. It's not strange for, Pat to kind of go back on his own preachings, but for the most part, they've always preached to, follow the Heat omerta of staying in silence. And that kind of goes back to, how he always wanted players to be. So when he started with the Lakers in his first year, he got super pissed off at Michael Cooper over some comments that he made frustratingly to the newspaper about Kareem's shot diet and how he wanted more. Pat Riley lit into him there because it, cast a negative light. And on top of that, there was another instance that same year where he humbled the entire team. It was called the Salt Lake Explosion, and they wouldn't even look at him when he got on the bus the next day. They wouldn't like start, being okay until he got them all in a circle and apologized for what he did. It's just, you own like more to what Sean said. You only have so many of these triggers that you can push before you can start tuning out a player. I hope I didn't butcher your point. And it gets very in my opinion dangerous when you do that, because man, like again, I've been in previous jobs. Like I used to work as a groundskeeper in college housing at 2 separate places, and I had a not so great boss who would try to show me up in front of other people, and that type of stuff, it builds resentment. I'm not trying to, compare myself to an NBA player, but those type of things are natural for people to feel. And, again, sticking with Spoelstra's comments about professionalism, man, highlighting an extreme case, the Orlando Magic calling out Shaquille O'Neal's professionalism is the real reason why he didn't stick around. They wanted him to report back on time when he was grieving the death of his grandmother, and he took it as a sign of some disrespect, like how dare you? And they were done since. So like, professionalism is a very tricky thing to go at. And credit to Ware that he played a lot better in the next game, but you know I'm curious to see if this is going to last because, of course, we've known throughout the year that he's had a motor that doesn't always reach his sixth gear. But again, like I'm not with this, man. Like you say you're about keeping things in house. It does look right to the young player. You start thinking about the circle of trust being broken when you conveniently start breaking this credo for to send a message to somebody.
You're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Let me ask about that term professionalism, because that one of the things that happens here is when you use kind of a broad term like that, right? That can encompass a lot of different things.
Sure.
So immediately after that, we all started okay, well, what was this about? Like, that's always the next question, right? Okay, is this just what we were seeing on the floor, which is it's a summer league game? Maybe he was a little too cool for school, wasn't taking it seriously enough because it doesn't really count. Maybe he felt like he shouldn't have been there because he was, second team all rookie and started the end of last season, even though Jaquez was first team all rookie and played a couple games the next year. Maybe it was just that, or maybe it was more, right? Like maybe it's missing meetings, maybe it's missing curfew, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. And that's where everybody starts to go with this. Do you, if you're going to use a term like professionalism as a coach, do you need to specify, or is it just enough to leave it out there? Because I can kind of see it both ways. Like I can feel like if you're giving away details of what was going on here, that's going to be worse. But at the same time, when you say professionalism, you kind of leave it open to the imagination for everybody. Go ahead, Mateo, but I want Shaw to get in on that too.
My bad. Naturally, I don't think you should be snitching, but naturally, like when people like yourself, if you hear him saying or go to that, and when it seems like a prepared speech, you want to know what it's about, and you hope it's not like something that's too serious. But I think what he did was enough. You said professionalism, like you don't put yourself in a further hole with the player.
Yeah, and I'll add, obviously where Mateo stands, if you're vague about it in professionalism, certainly if you go into specifics that, look, Kel'el was out until 4 a.m. playing blackjack, and he went to, there's no way that you're going to keep the credibility. And I think if you make this broader, and I think that's where Ethan was trying to go with this episode, is like Spo being more outspoken, kind of having, not that he didn't have a voice before, but this is outside the norm of what we know of him. I think you're in a very slippery slope if you start being too specific. But I also think, we've talked a lot about Kel'el. If this is a new strategy or a new Spoelstra, if you're going to do that for one, you almost have to do it for all. Not that all players have to be treated equally, but like, is he going to call out Tyler for shot selection? Is he going to call out, Bam's leadership or his ability to be the cat? Like those types of things. Not that everybody has to be treated equally, because that's not how professional sports, not how sports works, not life. But I just think it's a unique circumstance where I think he tried to pull a lever to make it work, and at least short-term results are good. But I don't think that you're going to see Spoelstra calling people out on the regular with you guys as you're in the media scrum, because these are ultimately their people. And the reaction to that, especially if that lever is pulled too many times, is going to poison your locker room.
Well, Sean, to that end, if the media jumps on something like this too much, then typically the reaction from the team will be to close ranks and go after the media. That's how these things work. It's like you kind of start the fire, but then if we make too much of it, and again, the comparison starts getting made, to Hassan. And I, as someone who covered Hassan and doesn't know Kel'el that well, but has been around him a little bit and was there for the 2 post game interviews out there after this happened. I mean, he's a soft-spoken. I mean, I was there the night he was drafted, and there's a confidence to him and all the rest of that. I was in New York that night, and he's very pleasant. He's engaging, but he's kind of laid back. That's sort of his personality in this regard. I don't think anybody's viewing him as a problem. I just think they're trying to get the most out of him and figure out what. And I think where I agree with you, Sean, is that it's clear that it didn't work behind the scenes. Like they were not comfortable with the results that they were getting for one reason or another. Whatever it is that he specifically did to set Spoelstra off to the point that he would take this step, it was not working. And I guess let's get back to this and what it means for training camp, because and then we'll do the Spoelstra part here last. I've made the case that the best way to kind of get the most out of him, and Mateo was kind of hinting at this, is not to gift him a starting spot going into camp. And especially, and that's why I asked the question about Jovic right after, because it would seem like the person who could push him the most on the current roster for that spot would be Jovic. I'll let Sean start on this one, then go to Mateo. I mean, how do you approach that? Because it seems like Bam wants Ware to start with him, not because Jovic, he doesn't like Jovic, but because he wants to play with a more traditional, I know you hate this, 5. Right? So if you're leaning into what your captain wants and what maybe your highest upside is, it's probably Ware, but it seems like this is the one carrot you could hold off over him.
Sure. And I think competition going into training camp is great. I mean, besides Tyler and Bam, I would say anyone else, you're competing for your spot in the rotation, in the starting lineup, whatever it may be. Or, we've talked about it. You're going to start Davion, you're going to start Powell, you're going to start Wiggins, you're going to start Nico or Ware. Like, there's a lot of guys in that mix. And I don't think that's a bad thing. Having competition is always going to bring out the best in especially these types of athletes. I agree with you. It should be a motivator for Kel'el. He should not be gifted. But, you look back at over the course of time, there's a lot of controversy or discussion about when Tyler said he feels like he should be a starter. Kel'el has not said that, but I would assume you go into you finish your rookie year as the starter. You would assume that next year you're going to get better and you would keep that spot. But I'm also sure that Nico feels like he has earned it over the course of many years, had injuries, had things that cost him opportunities, and that he wants to have that spot too. And I don't think that's a bad thing. To me, I think you should be talking to both of them about what they need to do. And you're trying to build habits. Even though Nico now is a little bit older, you're trying to build habits. And that's what, ultimately, I think the root of what Spo is trying to do is him alongside of the guys like Malik Allen, Alonzo Mourning, the guys that are around the team that are mentors, Udonis, are trying to build habits for a young man that is 19 years old or 20 years old that they want him to be a great professional basketball player. If he's Hassan on the court, even though it was a short spurt, that's great. That's a great pick. You just don't want him to be Hassan off the court and have the longevity end up being, wherever he's playing overseas in a couple of years. And that's part of this process.
All right, we're going to close here soon, but I'll let Mateo jump in on that, and then I want to talk about Spo. What would you do as far as the competition in camp, Mateo?
He definitely got to earn it. You're definitely right. It can't be something that's gifted to him. Like, as you recall, the power of a good benching. Nikola Jovic got his minutes slashed after the Heat's visit to here in Denver, which we were credentialed for. And after that, when he started getting some more playing time, he was better on his drives. He was a better release valve, hitting some more open threes, and his decision making was better. And you started to see a lot more growth more easily. And I think part of getting a player to blossom like that is you cannot give them something they haven't earned yet. And right now, I don't believe Kel'el Ware has earned it. He just off his rookie season alone.
Okay. All right. Let's get to the next part of this, and that's Spoelstra, and that's where this goes, because obviously Pat is 80, and we don't know how much longer he's going to be in the position he's in with the organization. We should, and we've done some on this, but we should do more episodes because people still don't understand it, that the Heat are kind of run like a consensus collective now, more so than a strong man. It's about 6 or 7 voices in there, and they come to decisions together. So, but Riley is still the front man, at least for the one time he speaks to the media per year, once, or sometimes we get him twice. Okay. Something along those lines. My belief is that ultimately what's going to happen here is, Nick Arison has had final say since 2011. Obviously the Arisons still own the team. And like I said, there's a collective here. Adam Simon has gotten a little bit more prominence in terms of what he's done. Andy Ellisberg, obviously still a huge factor in the organization and has the title to prove it. With that said, the lean here is that Erik Spoelstra is probably going to be the front man here going forward. Okay. And I believe he'll hold the coach title while he has that role. That's my prediction based on the information that I've gathered over the years and the people that I know. If that's the case, Sean, then is it different when when ultimately Pat slides more and more out of the picture? Because Pat's had the one voice philosophy, and his thing has been Spo's that voice during the season. Okay, I'm only that voice, and then one day I speak to the media when it's over. But I kind of feel like, I don't know if Spo did this intentionally, and I doubt he did. I don't think he thinks in these terms. But the fact that he does speak out now, is there more of that to be done if he ends up being the Riley of this organization?
Well, I guess the question would be, how available is he going to be to the media? Pat speaks once, maybe twice a year. If Spo's only doing it once or twice, it's really hard to go back. Hey, 3 months ago, remember when Kel'el was being unprofessional? And 2 months ago, remember when, that's not going to work. In terms of his role now, Spo, you're not hearing a lot from Chris Quinn and, the other guys. So Spo has to be the mouthpiece in a lot of ways that represents the entire staff behind him. And Pat ultimately does that with even more people behind him. I feel like going public, I think there was a reason behind it. I think there's more, the iceberg, there's more below the water. That's where I think this is all rooted in. And as he progresses into the front office, I would say that he's going to follow a lot of the lead of Pat. But we've also seen that Spo is not just a carbon copy of Pat. He's taken what he's learned from Pat, but he's also his own man. So I would expect him to kind of carve his own path as he moves into the front office.
All right, Mateo, I'll let you close on this. What kind of Erik Spoelstra do you think we would see?
Not a very different one. I think it would be very similar to what you kind of saw from, Riley in the 90s, being the coach and, the front face of the organization. I don't know if you're going to be throwing people under the bus as often as Riley in the past, but this is not an unnatural move. Consider how Erik Spoelstra has earned it. A coach on the level of Pat Riley, in my opinion, is superior. And, he's got 2 rings, 7 finals trips, and something he has done better than Pat Riley as the coach is, do more with less. And he already is someone with a huge say on that committee. So this is just what's next for him. I think he's already ready if he wants to go there right now.
Yeah, see, that's my biggest takeaway from this. The Ware stuff, to me, I agree. As I close this, I agree that it's not over, that this is obviously going to have to be continuous monitoring, and he's a young player. The development needs to come in all ways. They obviously believe they have a strong investment in the player. It's not just about holding him out of trade talks or anything like that. First thing, if you're planning on trading a guy, you're not going after him publicly, okay? Because that doesn't make any sense. You're devaluing your own player. To me, they see something in him. This is not a roster with a ton of guys with huge upside. So the ones who they believe have it, they need to draw the most out of it. And I think part of this was seeing how he would respond. I really do. I think part of this was, okay, let's do this and see what he does. And I think the response, at least, was promising. Okay, was promising. It shows that he cares. Okay, he cares what his coach thinks, or more, maybe it's more so he cares what the public thinks, whatever it is. But we have seen players who don't care. Clearly he cares. That's good. That's a good first step. But I think the larger thing to take out of this is that I wouldn't mind Erik Spoelstra finding that voice a little bit more often. And the point that, I don't know which of you made it, but I think it's a good one. It can't just be Ware then, because then Ware will feel like he's being picked on. That's the thing. So if you're going to do this, then if there's somebody else who you don't feel is putting in the effort in the Heat way, then there needs to be equal criticism there, or else a guy's going to feel like, okay, coach is always on me. It's always about me. And then that does build resentment at a certain time. And then when extension talks come up, that does become a problem. So I take a little bit from both of you guys on this one. All right. Appreciate it. I think, Sean, you got to go get a haircut, right?
I have AAU Nationals, so I need to go on the road to Central PA. I did this. I felt like last time when we did this, and I was in that it was a Wawa parking lot. It didn't work out very well. So
no, this was much better. So we'll let you run. I thought it was, for some reason I thought you told me you had to get a haircut. I can't I can't control my own staff. Sean Rochester, follow him at Rochester NBA. Mateo Mayorga, follow his work again on 5reasonsports.com. Have a good one, everybody.